Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And I hope that you can hear the sound in the background of an airplane flying towards the airport. Yes, because actually, technically, if you look at it in an aerial point of view, we live near the airport. If you look at it in the road map point of view, we don't. But if you look at it in the new roadmap point of view, we do. There, the circular, the circular roads that were made to give direct access to the airport from this part of Lahore. Yeah, because remember, this part of Lahore is what actually is closest to the motorway. So if you use the circular road, then it's also pretty close to the airport. Otherwise, if we used the traditional route, it's about an hour at least to the airport. But with a circular road directly from this part to the airport, it's very close, 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. That's how strange the earth mapping works, I guess. Anyway, point being, the reason I picked up the mic is because the weather is absolutely gorgeous. It is saying that it's 24 degrees centigrade and it's heavy rain, but actually it's a very quiet, very silent rain, the kind you get in winters. And as you know, it's been rainy days throughout the weekend. And this week, rains are expected, as in more rains are expected. So it rained yesterday in the morning. That was pretty heavy. And then it rained today in other parts of Lahore in the morning, but not this part. And then in the evening, afternoon, around Asr time, very light drizzle began, and now it's been raining steadily for at least an hour and a half or an hour. Yeah, so sometimes it goes a bit heavy, sometimes it goes a bit light, but it's not destructive by any means. Mashallah. Yeah, but it said but if you look at the forecast right now, as in the actual live forecast, it's showing heavy rain. So it's probably raining heavily in other parts of the city. But the point is, this is what monsoon originally is. In fact, this year, I can say, I will, reconfirm and reaffirm my original opinion that this year the weather was normal, as in the whole climate, the weather change, the seasons was normal compared to the previous years. The thing is that as you know, the past decade and a half, the weather's been quite wonky, as in, it has been totally abnormal because of climate change and everything, global warming, whatever you like to call it. But because of that, I guess many people have sort of forgotten that this is how monsoons always were. This is how it's supposed to be, you know. And this rain, once again, I would say, was a blessing. This rain, all these rains, this monsoon was a huge blessing, which turned into a curse simply because of the corruption of the present government, the corruption of the army, the belligerent attitude of theirs, the dishonest attitude of theirs, the lack of honesty, the lack of professionalism, the lack of sincerity, the lack of loyalty, the lack of patriotism on their part. If Imran Khan's government was not ousted, Imran Khan was actually working on the most commonsensical and most important and simplest and one of the most inexpensive ways to take advantage of all these rain collection units. So in the few places that he had already begun making them and finished making them, those places, as you can see, they're not affected by floods in any ways. But obviously, you don't begin in the whole country simultaneously. You have to work bit by bit, part by part. The northern areas, unfortunately, this time have been the worst hit by these very notorious cloudbursts. In other words, flash flooding has occurred a lot. also not helping that, as you know, our glaciers have been melting. So you have that, to boot. So, these are various factors that have been wreaking that have been causing these rains to wreak havoc up in the northern areas. But the truth is, it's kind of wreaked havoc throughout the country in various capacities, flooding, and that is also what makes it so funny that when India. As always, the Indian media is full of lies, as we know, and it's the most untrustworthy media in the world, as in their news is never to be trusted. And you can see the proof of that where they were saying that, oh, Pakistan's begging India for water. Like, are you serious? You do see Pakistan's flooding right now. India's flooding. Pakistan's not the only country that's flooding. India's flooding. And if anything, India is actually now looking for a way to throw its water into Pakistan, which it always does. Every time during the monsoon season, when India cannot bear the amount of water that comes through, and when it wants to minimize the havoc wreaked by flooding, that's when it opens the floodgates, and all the water comes into Pakistan's rivers. Not all the rivers, because, but two at least two of our rivers, they get filled up then. So remember, we have five. So there you have it. It's hilarious. I mean, right now, Pakistan is getting more than its fair share of water. I mean, this is in a way, it's a divine message to, it's like, okay, India wants to play God and try to stop Pakistan from having water. Okay, God decides to just flood Pakistan with water. Here you go. You've got more water than you need. Do whatever you want now. But as usual, what does Pakistan do? It will waste all this water. All this water is going to go to the sea. Once again, tons and tons and tons of much needed water wasted. But if now anybody tries to make that claim that Pakistan's groundwater level is falling, I will smack the bejesus out of them. Because anybody knows this. Anybody who has, two cells to rub together in their brain would know this, that these kind of rainfalls actually increase groundwater level as well. So the amount of floods that we're getting, I swear, nobody can complain about ground level water ever. At least not for the next not until the next year or next 2 years. Seriously, don't give me that shit. You know. But anyway, yeah, I guess it's just that after a very long time, tonight actually, not even today, but this night or this morning, because it's technically 1:30 a.m. It felt like how it used to feel decades ago. You know, I have not had this feeling in a very, very long time. This feeling of, you know, literally, literally feeling it in your very soul, the beautiful weather. There are many people who still feel that. I know in Pakistan there are many people who still feel that, they still enjoy the weather, but I stopped for a long time. um it just stopped. you know I stopped feeling anything of the sort. But after almost 2 decades, I'm actually, at least after a decade in any case, I'm, for the first time in a very long time, I'm actually feeling it. That very nice, very cozy, but at the same time very cool. Very, I mean, you see, actually, unlike in Europe, in South Asia, rains, they are welcome, even if they cause floods, even if they wreak havoc. I mean, generally, rains are always considered a blessing. They're welcome. They're a good sign, because remember, we live in tropical countries, and rain has a lot of advantages. It freshens up the air. It kills the dust in the air. It it makes everything just seem reborn. It makes everything seem rejuvenated. It makes everything seem so fresh and new and glowing and green. And it's as if it's as if you're seeing life itself come to life. That's the kind of feeling you feel during the monsoons in the subcontinent in South Asia. It's an amazing feeling. So it's kind of romantic. It's a very romantic season in the South Asia, to be honest. Rains are romantic. Rainy season is romance. It's life's romance. And as I said, people still feel that when it rains. As you'll see, people will immediately still do that, where they'll say, oh, let's just fry some savories and let's just get the tea ready and let's just enjoy the rain. It's like that. All the way from up the northern areas, all the way down to Sindh, it's like that. But as I said, I haven't felt like that for a very long time. And suddenly feeling like that after such a long time, it might mean something, I don't know. But I thought that this was well worth documenting. The fact that right now these rains are basically marking the ending of monsoon and the beginning of autumn. So I mean, what I'm saying is, one of the other good things now that you're going to see is proper autumn. As I said, these past 10 odd years, the whole seasonal changes have been completely wackadoodle. you know some years spring and autumn have been totally missing, like last year we just had humidity, 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 and then hit winter, and then humidity, humidity. I mean, it was just this is what was going on throughout last year. We didn't have rains the way we've had proper rains this year. So this year is basically making up for last year as well. So last year it didn't even rain the way it should have. It was so humid, it was so humid, it was so humid that it's a miracle that the clouds didn't burst there and then and just shed it all. It's a miracle. I don't know how the clouds managed to contain themselves. And we didn't see spring, we didn't see autumn, just humidity throughout the year. It was like winter and then straight to humidity and then more humidity until winter. And the winter was very tough too. It was a very short spell of very, very tough winter. And now this year, I don't know if I mentioned it in my previous podcast, but episodes, but this year I knew that it was going to be normal because this year started normal. First of all, no humidity before its time. We actually saw a bit of spring. And I was like, okay. And now we're seeing monsoon, proper traditional monsoon. It's a very good sign, seasonal wise. Okay, if you set the disasters aside, which is obviously, as I said, this disaster is only and only because of the deviant, the irresponsible, unprofessional, insincere, treacherous behavior of our government and the army, which are illegal in any case. They're just illegally imposed on us, which is, we cannot lament enough. And they will never die. Such people don't die, isn't it? Such people are the ones that make you lose faith in God, seriously. But anyway, point being, so this is proper monsoon. We're having proper, uh, summer ending rains. Yes, because it's very chilly. It's literally so chilly that for 2 days I've spent half the time with the fan off or at very low. Even right now, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but right now the fan is at a very, very low speed. And it's like this, that if you turn on the fan at full or even at third speed, it is cold. I mean, refreshingly cold, but cold. It means that you will now begin to see the chilly autumn weather, proper chilly autumn weather. You're going to get those vibes back again, you know. So, autumn vibes is what I'm saying. It's autumn vibes. Yeah, because technically these rains, because this is the 25th of August, so these rains are going to basically mark the end of monsoon, and then we will have another spell of rains either immediately connecting these rains or maybe after a short break. But then that's the next spell basically of rains that we'll have will be marking the end of season. So there will be your winter rains, in other words, your autumn rains. So, yay! It's actually going to be autumn this year. Amazing. Never thought that we would actually have to look for autumn in a country like ours where we have 5 seasons, not 4. Yeah, because monsoon is a season, rainy season. It's not just the weather, monsoon is an actual season. So when we mark the seasons in the subcontinent or in South Asia, we when we're being very accurate, we actually have 5 seasons, not 4. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Autumn vibes. Well, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.